بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So we pick up on page 44. Inshallah. We're in Saajid's book, Al-Thamaraat, maxims of the rules, some basic general rules regarding fiqh. And this one is important today because we use it a lot. Hopefully we use it a lot. Sometimes we might use some of the rules of Islam, we don't even know we use it. So today, inshallah, and it's probably only today, we should be finished by next week. Next week we probably finish the book with the last rule or the last principle, which is the 12th principle, Al-Thamaraat, about the order, the custom of the people. Today we do number 11, the 11th principle, Al-Yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. Al-Yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. Which it says maximum 11. Certainty is not removed by doubt. Certainty is not removed by doubt, which is something that happens a lot. Meaning, and he's going to explain it. There's a lot of different categories to apply this rule to, as it's going to come in the next couple pages. So he says, first of all, that if a person has certainty about something, they sure they did something. After that, ثم شك هل زال الشيء متحققا له. Whatever they were sure about, whatever they were sure they did, right? After they were sure that they did it, they had some doubt. Is it still like it was, or did it change? And he's going to bring the details. But if a person that says verifies a matter, a person is sure that they did something. You sure you made wudu? You sure you prayed fajr? You sure you fasted today? Ramadan, right? You sure you made your intention to fast Ramadan? Whatever the case may be, you sure you paid the sadaqah or the zakat? You sure you did something, right? He says, then falls into doubt. And it's important, he says, during. So while they're doing the action, they start to doubt if they did something at the beginning of the action, right? So for example, a person's making wudu, they start with their hand, they do their mouth, their nose, their face, do their right arm. They get to their left arm and they start to doubt. Did I rinse out my mouth? Right? During the wudu. Like, or any other example that's going to come. He says the basic rule is the verified matter remains as it is, and therefore no matter remains as the verification first. I'm sorry, therefore the matter remains as the verification first indicates. You set out like this. Read that again. The basic rule is the verified matter remains as it is, and therefore the matter remains as the verification first indicates. Anybody know what that means? The basic rule. And what a person verified in there. It says verified. A person was sure that they did something. They're sure. And then a little further into the action, they start doubting. Wait a minute, did I do that or not? Well, they're not finished. They're still doing the action. The basic rule is the verified matter, whatever they were sure about, remains. Therefore, the matter remains as the verification first indicated. Whatever you were sure about, and stay sure. You stay sure. Meaning you don't change up because you had some doubt. You were sure that you did it. The only thing that can remove what you were sure about is that you're sure that you didn't do it. Just because you start doubting something doesn't mean it overrides what you were sure you did. It's going to come. The clarity is going to come later. So now the example that he uses, if a person doubts, if a man doubts if he married a woman or not. Like, he has doubt. Did he marry her or didn't he marry her? Is it possible? It's possible. Right? Huh? It's possible. I don't know if it, or it could have been, let's just say a person, so damn, he was just tired. They said he was traveling, they came off the road, it's one of them deadbeat tires, they went straight to the kneecap, and for real, they don't remember. Or whatever the case may be. They just doubt this doubt. Did I get married last night or not? We're not talking about, we're talking about it's possible. Like, it says, in this case, they may not part, the man and the woman, they may not take part in sexual intercourse due to the ruling of the prohibition. Right? What does that mean? He's doubt if he married the woman or not. What's the origin? Is the origin that he did marry her or that he wasn't married? The origin is that he was never married to her. Right? And this is vice versa for a woman. The origin is that she was never married to the man. Because if we say the opposite, then that means you're automatically married to people. You're not automatically married to people until y'all go through the process of the nikah, the marriage. So the origin, when we say the origin, the original rule is that you're not automatically married to people. That takes a process of the nikah. If you have doubt in that process, did that process, the procedure of the nikah take place or not? That means we stick with the origin. We stick with what we're certain about. This is what we're certain about. When we're certain about it, we're not just married to everybody we see. We only married to the people that we went through the process, the procedure of getting married. Right? So therefore, what I'm certain about is I'm not married to this one, and this one. That's what I'm certain about. I wake up the next day and I say, Dad, did I marry such and such yesterday? Right? In that case, I'm doubtful about marrying her, but I'm sure what? Previously that I wasn't married to her. So what I'm sure about remains. That's what I stick with. And if I'm sure I didn't marry her, that means, as he says, he's not able to have sex with the woman, and likewise, the woman not able to have sex with the man. They're not married. Clear? Based on what's clear, what's sure and clear, which I ain't about. What I'm certain about is that I wasn't married to her. What I doubt, my doubt comes in where I think I'm married. You with me? Or did we get married or not? There's doubt about that. So that doubt doesn't override the certainty. That's why it says, if a person doubts he married a woman, in this case, they may not take part in sexual intercourse due to the ruling of prohibition. He's going to get the ruling of prohibition, meaning the origin of sexual intercourse, to have sex with a woman, or for a woman to have sex with a man, the origin, originally the rule that is not allowed. Sex is not allowed except by what? By way of the marriage contract that allows intercourse. Right? Legal. And of course, sex that is allowed Islamically. Now, if a person has sex outside of marriage, that's zina, which is fornication, right? Which that carries a punishment. It's a punishment. That's a sin, and it's a punishment that comes along with it. Like, he says, on the other hand, and this is important because you got to stick with the original rule, and the original rule varies from situation to situation. So the original rule when it comes to marrying people, a man marry a woman or a woman marry a man, the original rule is that what? We're not married. That's the asl. The original rule is that we're not married, right? In order for us to be married, we have to go through the procedure and the process of the nikah. Let's flip it. People are married too. A man and a woman are married, right? That's why I said on the other hand. We got married, two men and woman get married. They know they're married. Us, right? They've been married for a year, a week. It don't make a difference. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it don't make a difference. They married. They're married for 3 days. It don't make a difference. They get married, right? Cool. He doubts whether he divorced his wife or not. It's doubt. He don't know if he divorced his wife. He got some doubt. I think I divorced my wife. What is he sure about in this case? He's sure about that they were married. The doubt is that he divorced her. You don't take that and say, well, you divorced because I think you divorced her. That doesn't override. That doubt of divorcing his wife does not override the fact that they've been married for the past week. He's clear. His wife is clear. Everybody's certain and clear. We got married last Thursday. A week went by Thursday. He wakes up on Friday and say, did I divorce my wife? I think I divorced my wife. No, that doubt doesn't override those 7 days of certainty. Clear? So the original rule when it comes to a married couple is if he doubts whether he divorced her or not, then they're still married. Because the origin is that they were already married. You with me? That on the opposite hand, if they're not married, the origin is that we're not married. So if you think you married a woman or she thinks you married a man, it doesn't count like that. The origin is that you're not married. Therefore, every as he's going to get to the different chapters, they have different origins. The general rule might be different for each chapter. That's what he's going to go into. Like, he says, likewise, if one doubts in the validity of his wudu, right, whether it has been broken or not, a person, they doubt, did they break their wudu after he was certain he was in a state of purity? You sure you made wudu? You're in the house, you say what? Someone's time for Maghrib, let me make wudu and go to the mess. You make wudu. Oh. Wow. Scary. You make wudu. You make wudu in the house. You leave the house. You get to the masjid, right? You come to the masjid. You hear the iqamah. You say, "Did I make wudu before I left?" No, you say, "I'm sorry. Did I break my wudu on the way here?" Now you doubt. Did I break my wudu on the way here? Right. So now you're between what? You're between two things. One thing you're sure about, and the other thing you're not sure about. What you're sure about is what? You made wudu when you left the house. Before you left the house, I made wudu. That's what I'm sure about. And the doubt is, did I break my wudu? So therefore, in that case, do I need to make wudu or not? I don't have to make wudu. Why? Because the hustle is that I go with what I'm sure about. And I'm sure that I made wudu. I'm not sure that I broke my wudu. So I'm not going to pray. Just like that.
So on the flip side, say if you're certain you broke your wudu, but you're not sure you made the wudu and you broke it. The order is that you know you broke the wudu, so what happened?
Right. Exactly. The opposite is the same. You know you broke the wudu. But that I don't know if there's any sisters over here. It might be back here. But they got a question. If she needs the mic, we can give her the mic, inshallah. Like he says, and that's what he says after that. He says vice versa. The opposite is the same. You sure you broke your wudu? So I know I gotta make wudu when I get to the masjid. Right? I'm on the way to the masjid. I'm sure I broke my wudu. Right? I get to the masjid, I hear the iqamah, and I say, did I make wudu? When you sure you have already broken. Right? Did I make wudu already? Whatever. You start thinking, you doubt. The doubt is in what now? The doubt is in, did you make wudu? You sure that you did what? You sure that you broke your wudu, and you're not sure if you made wudu. So in that case, can you pray or do you need to make wudu first? You need to make wudu first, right? Because the doubt doesn't override the certainty. And that's why it says certainty is not removed by doubt. He says the same thing. If a person doubts the number of rak'ah, you praying, if you got the book, the example is at the bottom. A person doubted, he doubted the number of prayer units he has performed. Right? Dhuhr is 4 rak'ah. A person is praying, right? They pray 2 rak'ah to tashahhud, they stand up, they pray the 3rd rak'ah, right? They pray the 3rd rak'ah, they get to the 4th rak'ah, they get to the 4th unit, the 4th rak'ah, and they start to think, is this 3 or 4? You're praying, you get to the last rak'ah, which is the 4th, but you start to doubt, is this 3, is this the 3rd one, or is this my last one? It's really what? Reality is what? It's the last one, but they got doubt. You understand? There's doubt. The doubt is in what? Is this the 4th one? Even though in reality it's the 4th one, this is the issue. The issue is I'm not sure if it's the 4th one. I'm in the worship, and I'm not sure if this is the 4th one. In this case, we go what we're sure about, right? What is a person sure about? And it could vary. I might be sure, I know I did 3. And if I did 3, I make this my 4th. Right? A person might say, I know I did 2. I'm sure I did 2. And if I'm sure I did 2, then I make this my 3rd. Clear? And it could vary from person to person. So in that case, when I'm doubt how many rak'ah I prayed, I go with the number of rak'ah that I'm sure I prayed. Certainty. I'm certain I prayed 2 rak'ah already. Therefore, if I'm certain I prayed 2, then I'm going to make this my 3rd. And then I'm going to make another one after this, which is going to be my 4th to me. Which in reality, it might be how many? He might have prayed or she might have prayed 5, but one of them didn't count because they had doubt if they prayed them or not. Is the origin that you prayed all of them already, or the origin that you didn't pray? The origin when it comes to the salat is that you didn't pray all of the salat. You have to pray them. So you can't say, well, I think this is my 4th one, I'm just making my 4th. No. You can't just make it your 4th because the asl is that you don't have them at all. You don't have no rak'ah. When we stand up the line for Maghrib, before we start Maghrib, we don't have any Maghrib at all. We didn't pray any rak'ah at all. That's the asl. That's the origin. Then we pray 1. Right? We pray 2, then we pray 3. Now we prayed all of them. I can't pray 1 and then assume that's 2. You understand? You take the lesser number to be sure, right? And that's why it says if a person doubts the number of rak'ahs. And the same thing with a person making tawaf. Yeah. You see that word there? Anybody reading the book? Yeah. The number of what?
Circle and manipulation.
Tawaf. Tawaf around the Kaaba. That's funny. I forgot to say it myself. I thought you was gonna get it. A person gotta go around the Kaaba 7 times for Hajj or Umrah, right? A person's going around and they get mixed up on how many times they went around. What is Saajid that before? You gotta go around the Kaaba 7 times. It's crowded, pushing going on. Person is happy to be there. First time they ever saw the Kaaba, they just going around. SubhanAllah. They're like, how many was that? I don't even know. Just walking. I'm just walking. How many? I lost count. Right? Looking at the Kaaba, all the Muslims there, we stop, pray, because we make it tawaf. They might call the event. One of the salat. And that's how you stop in the middle of everything. Everybody lines up. That's how it ends up. Possibly a woman praying in front of a man at the huddle, or a man praying in front of a woman, or praying next to a woman. It could happen like that because while we making tawaf, everybody's making tawaf. Then the event goes off from under. So they try to start getting separated from people, but they might call it a comment. It might be too crowded to move, and then you end up praying like that. Like you end up praying like that, then after we pray, we start finishing tawaf. We look at each other and say, how many was that? 5 or 6? How many we did? Was that 5 or 6? Brother says, I don't know. I know we did 4. Because we did 4 before the event. Then we make that. We sure we did 4, then this is 5. Right? You should go with the certainty of the number, and then you build on top of that. Even if at the end you end up doing more. If you got doubt in something while you're doing it for worship, then that whatever you had doubt in is not part of the worship. Clear? That's why I said if you're going around the Kaaba, if you're making the Sa'i, you're throwing the rocks. You're making the Hajj, you got a stone to jump out. Right? 7 stones. How many stones did I throw? Was that 7? I knew I threw 5. I'm not sure if that's -5. All right, that's 6 or 7. You go with the lower number, the number that you're sure about, you take, and then everything on top of that, you build on top of that. Like he says, he carries this on based on the previous certainty, and the certainty in these cases, when you're praying and you're making a tawaf around the Kaaba, what you're certain about is the lower number. I'm sure I prayed 2 rak'ah. I know I prayed 2 and I did it with the shuttle. Right? I'm not sure anything after that, so you go with the certainty. Like he says,
with the prayers, the units, the rak'ahs, now we'll be certain about the 7 go with the lower number, right? You know, does prostration be different if you have to make that?
yeah. So the disciples gonna come into play when you making that. If you doubt about the rak'ah, yeah, that's a whole nother issue. But yes, when you have doubt about those rak'ah, If you want 3 or 4, and then you just go with the lower number. Sujood, an extra sajda, sujood the sahwa, the prostration of forgiveness, is at the end of that salah. Even though he didn't mention it here, that's a whole chapter in itself about when to do it and when not to do it. And doubt is one of the reasons to make sujood, the extra sajda at the end. Later, on page 45, he moves to the different, what do we call these? The different categories, right? When it comes to certain categories, a certain rule, the rules differ. For example, we already said that what the origin when it comes to the single person, you're single, the origin is that you're not married to the woman. And the origin is that the sister is not married to the man. You don't wake up one day and say, "Kiss him." I think I married sis last night, right? No, that doesn't allow you to have sex with a woman, right? Islam, that doesn't allow you to have sex with a woman. Vice versa, it's the same thing for a woman. She don't wake up and say, "I think I'm married. We got married. I married Fulana last night. I think we got married." Also, you go with the origin. The origin is that you wasn't married to him. You were not married to him. That's the origin in that case. Right, now move to the chapter of divorce. That's the chapter of marriage. The chapter of divorce. This means people are already married. In the chapter of divorce, people are already married. If you're already married, then the rule changes. So the man wakes up and he says, "What? I think I divorced my wife." He's not sure if he divorced her, but he says, "I think I divorced her." Well, what are you certain about? You certain that was your wife you was married to. You have doubt about divorcing her. So you go with you certain. That doesn't count as a divorce where they're still married.
And all the rules of marriage, so like you say, he's still allowed to have sex with his
Yeah,
wife.
he's still married to her.
And she's still under his.
And she's still his wife.
And so he has to still.
The divorce it doesn't count. What counts is what you're sure about. You can't wake up one day and say, "I think I divorced my wife 3 times." Well, you know what that means. And even if she don't agree. If she agrees, that's a key. And if she agrees that he divorces, that's going to go into a long. But Allahu A'lam. In that case, the divorce comes from who? And therefore, I think the whole is for the man. It goes back to the man. Because the divorce is not in her hand. The divorce is in the hands of the man. He had to divorce her. And he says, "I think I divorced her." No, that doesn't override the fact that you were married. But that's going to come in the chapter of marriage. She tied up. I thought you did divorce her. Alongside. Later. Inshallah, we're going to do the chapter of marriage soon. Later. So now in another section, outside of the section of marriage, the chapter of marriage, the chapter of divorce, he says the basic rule regarding purity. When it comes to tahara, purity here means what? What is something that is not pure Islamic? If it's not pure, that means it's what? Haram. Not necessarily. It says, all right, it says the basic rule regarding things. So let's use water. If water is not pure, then it's what? Impure. Right? What is impure water? What is water that's impure? What does that mean? Not clean. So that means the water is dirty.
It contains things that's not has something in it.
Good. He says it has something in it. Wood, because that's safe. I have a cup of water right here. And literally, some dust could fly in the water. And you look at it and it's gray. Is that water impure? Huh? Now let's just say, for example, you see how words are? If we say to us, that's dirty water. It's dirty, right? But is dirty water Islamically impure? You understand the difference? So when we say the water is dirty, it doesn't necessitate that the water is not pure. All right. So when we say, when you hear he's talking about, when we talk about water that's not pure, We're talking about water that has Islamic, Islamically is what's considered filth. And not the filth that we say. Islamic filth. Because we can say that, we might say that that floor is filthy. Meaning what? It's dirty. Because it's filthy, does that mean we can't, filthy in our terms? Filthy in our terms, does that mean we can't pray on that floor? No. So Islamic filth is a different thing. All right, so what's filth Islamic?
Something pure.
Something?
You said what's filth?
Filth Islamically. What is filthy Islamically? Something that's filth Islamically.
Like feces.
Good. Feces, urine.
Oh, so,
This is filth Islamic. So if there's urine on the floor, then we can't pray there. But if it's dirt on the floor, we say, this floor is already clean, it's not dirty, it needs to be mopped. It just needs to be mopped. It might be juice, right? Might be footprints, it was raining, there's footprints. Yeah, it's dirty, but can I pray there? Meaning, not that I want to pray in juice, but if I had to pray there, if I prayed there, would I have to pray again? I wouldn't have to pray over because there was juice on the floor, right? But if I prayed on top of some urine, right? Somebody, they came in off the average dad, you know, people walk in, right? They had a dog with them, the dog urinated on the floor. Then you go pray there on top of it. Now you got to pray over because of the filth, which is the urine, right? So, it says here, the basic rule regarding things is that everything is pure. Things are pure. We don't assume that every time there's water on something, that is urine. Everything wet is not urine. That's the idea. Like, you go outside, somebody splash you with a puddle, you know, right? You wait across the street, you know how you get a little socket of water by the train track. The car rolls in the little puddle of water between the train track, and the water splashing on your throat. Right now, your clothes are wet, or your body, whatever you got on, splashing on your clothes. You on your way to the mess. The question is the assumption. What's the assumption? Is the assumption that that was urine, or is the assumption that that was water that's clean enough and pure enough that I can go pray like that? The assumption is that it's pure. That's not urine. The assumption is not that every time we get wet with water is urine. The only time we consider that urine is when we sure that that's urine. Like you can smell it, that's urine. That's not it, right? And then you go off of that. The fact that it's wet, it's water, it's dirty water. Dirty water, not that it's preferable to pray like that. But if I prayed with dirty water on my clothes, even if, you know what I'm saying, does that mean I have to pray over? Not necessarily, even though water is dirty. So dirty in our terms, filthy in our terms is not necessarily filthy Islamically. Filthy Islamically, urine, feces, blood, large amounts of blood, stuff like that. Right? So he says if a person's body or clothing is touched by water or moisture, right? Or a person steps on dung. You know, dung is dung. Manure, right? A person steps in manure, right? You see, he steps on dung or bones fall in the water, and he doubts its purity or its impurity. Jay, good question. Say it again. Why would you doubt the impurity of what? Of this manure, of poop. Did we say that? It's all poop and manure. Huh? Feces, it's all feces, it's all poop, manure, filth Islamically? No. That's why he says that. You understand? We ain't getting to that right now. But point being is when things happen, the immediate assumption is not that it's filth, Islamic filth. I can't pray like this now. No. Generally everything is pure, except what we know is impure. So when my clothes get wet, it's raining outside, right? It's raining. It's a lot of things that was wet. So it stops raining. And the next day it's puddles everywhere. Somebody ride by, splash, or you come out, you step off the step, you step in a puddle, it splash, get on your clothes. Will you assume that's urine? You assume that's impure? No, that's pure. That's why it says here, if it does like that, then he should consider it pure. And following the basic rule. What's the basic rule regarding things. The basic rule regarding things is that everything is pure until proven otherwise. Not that everything is not pure. So you don't assume all water outside when it's splashing on. You don't assume all of that has urine in it. You don't assume all of the sidewalks outside somebody urinated all over. Are there areas where people urinate on the sidewalk? There's areas. Do we assume all of the sidewalks are filled with urine? That's not the hustle. That's not the origin in this chapter. The origin in this chapter is that everything is pure until we're sure that it's not pure. So you might walk into somewhere and it might smell like urine. Because something smells like urine doesn't mean where you're standing has urine on it. Clear? Until somebody comes and say, yo, I wouldn't pray right there because that's where everybody comes to urinate. This is where people bring their dogs right here. People always bring their dogs right here to urinate, so I wouldn't pray here. Now you clear. All right, I'm not praying there because that area right there. What about over here? If I move over here to another area, my assumption is what? The other area is clean. Until somebody comes and clarifies it, right? He said, this is the basic rule. He said, even if he thinks it's impure right there, it's not sure. And that makes life a whole lot easier. We don't walk around on eggshells assuming everything is filthy. We can't do nothing over it. The assumption is everything is pure. I can pray anywhere. I can be out, go outside in the parking lot, pray, be out in the park, move over here in the grass, pray. Right? It's all pure until we're sure that it's not. Tell you. He moves to the next section, the next chapter, which is the chapter of food. When it comes to food, what we can eat and what we can't eat. Right? What the Muslim can eat and what the Muslim can't eat. He said, Al-Asl fil At'ima al-Hil. He said the origin when it comes to food is that all food is lawful. We can eat anything. That's the asl. The origin is that the Muslim can eat anything. Right? He says why? He says this is because Allah the Most High created for his creation all that is on the earth so that the people can benefit from it. Allah made everything on earth for us to benefit from. So the asl when it comes to food is that we can eat anything we want to eat. And what we prefer to eat is one thing. A person might not prefer red meat. All that kind of stuff, that's what you prefer. Can the Muslims eat red meat? It's the Muslim, right? He says after that, because Allah He created for his creation all that is on the earth in order to benefit from by eating, drinking, and anything else. You can eat, drink, and anything, right? He permitted it to every, that's what he created it for. All right, the foods that we can't eat, he says, therefore, no food and drink, nothing from that we, no food, no drink is haram. Nothing is haram. Everything originally is what? Pure to eat, food and drink, everything. Only thing that's haram is what he says, what Allah and his messenger said is haram. Clear? So out of all of the foods in the world, right, there's very few things that the Muslims can't eat. And what are the things that we can't eat? The things that Allah specified, that the Prophet says unspecified. So in the chapter of food, the origin of food, and that's why I said the basic rule regarding foods is that they are lawful. All food is lawful, except for what? What's not lawful mean? What is not allowed for the Muslims to eat? What Allah and the Messenger said we can't eat, which is of course pig, right? The different types of animals that have claws in the chapter of Al-Thamaraat, right? Fangs, that kind of thing. So in the chapter of food, when it comes to food, what's the origin? We can eat anything. Except what? Except what Allah said we can't eat. And if you look at it, overall, right, the exceptions of what we can't eat is the minority. Majority of things Muslims can eat. We're not talking about what people prefer to eat. We're not talking about you overeating too much or something. Are Muslims allowed to eat fish or not? Are Muslims allowed to eat beef or not? Are Muslims allowed to eat lamb, goat? Whether you prefer to eat it, that's a different case. Is it haram for a Muslim to eat a beef? Right? It's not haram. Maybe I don't prefer to eat beef, but it's allowed. And when it comes to pork, are Muslims allowed to eat pig? Because the rule says all food is halal. That's what the rule says. Except for what? Except what Allah says we can't eat. Can we eat pig? No. Can the Muslims eat pork?
No.
No. That's the asl. Why not? Because Allah said we can't eat pork. You understand? Clear? We don't never live by the exception. It's a yes or no question. Can Muslims eat pork? No, that's the rule. Why not? Because Allah prohibited pork. Allah made pork haram. Right? We can't eat pork. Like, what are other things that have been prohibited? So that's the rule for when it comes to food. Then he moves to the next one. Says the basic rule regarding sexual intercourse is prohibition. Right? The basic rule regarding sex is that the asl, التحريم. It is not allowed Islamically to have sex with anybody. That's the origin. Right? Except when Allah and His Messenger, Allah may allow a man to have sex with a person. Clear? And this is why in the chapter of marriage, a person stays on the asl. The origin is that I'm not married. And if I'm not married, I'm not allowed Islamically to have sex with a woman. There's two ways Islamically that allows me to have sex with a woman, or for a woman to have sex with a man. We're talking about legal sex, Islamically under the Sharia, under the Islamic law. There are two things that allow a person to have sex with the opposite with a woman, or for a woman to have sex with a man. But if I didn't do either one of those two, the asl is I'm not allowed to do that. And if I do, if a person does, it's haram, it's sinful, it's from the major sins, and it's a punishable act. So he says the basic rule for sexual intercourse is tahreem, prohibition. It's haram to just have sex with people. Random people just having sex with. Islam don't allow that. And we see the problem, right? The problem is clear. Allah Musta'an. The problem is clear. Our problem is we don't understand the repercussions of zina. Some kids don't even know their fathers. We don't understand the problem and the psychological problems that come from that until it's too late. It's late now. Once they get older, it's cute when they little babies, you change your parents around, you dressing them up. But once they get grown, they get a little older, they start talking back and they become uncontrollable. Now it's a problem. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem of zina. So he says sexual intercourse is not permitted, not allowed, except in the cases Allah and His Messenger have permitted. And there's two cases. Either marriage, you married a person, and y'all can have it done. Or that a person, as he says, slave ownership. As a person who owns a slave is allowed to have sex with a slave. Those are only two cases. In our case, we don't have slaves. If you pay somebody, if somebody works for you, it's not a slave. Even if they get a cheap wage, it's not a slave. Slaves are owned. Slaves, as we know, can be sold. Slaves are property, right? You can sell them. And there's no repercussion from the government if you do, right? If you were to sell a person, if people get caught selling people to death, right? There's repercussions for it. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a time where it wasn't. Like, so right now, the time we're living in, there's only one recourse that allows sex, which is marriage. Like, how do we know that? Allah said in the Quran, and He brings that verse, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُم فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ وَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ, which is at the top of page 46. Those who guard their private parts, they protect themselves from having sex with people who they're not married to. That's what guard your private part means, right? Except from their wives. It means they're married. So if a man has a wife, that means she has a husband, right? They're married. These people is no problem. Or those who their right hands possess. That means they own someone. They have a slave. These are the two things that allow a man and a woman to have sex. Islamically, without it being a sin and a punishable act. He says, those are the people who are not blamed. There's no blame on the people who do that. Marriage is no blame if you have sex while you're married. There's no problem. Right? That's part of life. even if the marriage doesn't work out. They were married. So it's not like it's sin, it's a sin. They had sex, they was married. If it don't work, cut the law, that's your problem. That's why Allah says they are not to be blamed because they was married. They had a reason for it. Whoever seeks beyond that, then they are transgressors. Whoever has sex outside of those two things, then this is the sin. So the asl of having sex, of being allowed to have sex is prohibition, except if you have one of the two things. And in our day and time, except through marriage. Play. So now you got different rules. In different chapters, there's a different rule. The rule in the chapter of sex, for example, what's the origin? It's not allowed, except with marriage. The chapter of food, what's the origin? All food is permissible, except what Allah and His Messenger says is not permissible. Right? Clear? That's how it works. When it comes to things in general, right? You go to my house and you need to borrow a shirt. You go to your cousin's house or somebody in your family house, they're not Muslim. Right? You need to wear some of their clothes. You need to wear some of their jeans. Right? Is it allowed? Are their clothes pure or are their clothes filthy? Right? Why would their clothes be filthy? Why would a person consider a non-Muslim's clothes filthy? Or out in Islam? Right. Sit down. Right? My person might say, well, or their pots. They might put pork in the pots. It's the usles that their pots. The usles that their pots are what? Huh? No. That's the origin. Until you're sure that it's pork in that pot or it's the remain, like until you're sure the usles that the pots are fine, the usles that their clothes are fine. That's the usles. And things are pure. In order for it to be considered not pure or filthy Islamically, that it has urine on it, there's pork on it, that has to be verified. Like, therefore, he says here, if doubt occurs in any given circumstance, is sexual intercourse permitted or not? If you doubt that you fit one of the two requirements Islamically to have sex with a woman or for a woman to have sex with a man, if you doubt that you fit one of the two, then what's the rule? Then you can't have sex with them. It's not allowed. Islam. That's the basic rule. Prohibition until we verify that it's okay. Islamically lawful. Until we verify that you are married. Until it's verified that you are married, you're not allowed. Islamically. Later, he says the basic rule regarding life of the protected citizen, wealth and honor. When it comes to people, life, taking a life, right? When it comes to wealth, a person's money. When it comes to a person's honor, what do they mean by a person's honor? If I say your honor, what am I referring to? Huh? If I say, for example, his honor or her honor has been tarnished. Huh? Their word? Your honor has been tarnished with that. When you did that, we say he lost stripes. He lost a couple stripes with that. What does that mean? Like, I don't know if other people use that out in the cities. But if we say, no, he lost stripes on that, what do we mean by that? How would you explain that to somebody who doesn't talk like that?
Like you look down.
He's looked down on. Okay? You can't trust him. You might still trust him, but he lost some level. Yeah, it's a little funny now. Which in reality, altogether, it affects a person's reputation. Your rep on the line with that. You really, you know what I'm saying? So now, when it comes to life, being able to take a life, when it comes to taking a person's money, when it comes to a person's honor, a person's reputation, the usl in all of these things is what? Prohibition. Haram to take a person's life, haram to take a person's money, and it's haram to insult a person's character and to tarnish a person's reputation by something you said or do. That's the usl. Clear? When it comes to people, you're not allowed to just, it's the usl Islam. You're not allowed to just walk around talking about people, calling people names. They off it, they ain't on it, they shout out, they this, they that. We made it in this city for many people. They took the exception and made it the rule. It's only specific times you're allowed to talk about a person and mention their faults and stuff like that. There's specific times for that. The rule, the original rule is generally you're not allowed to tarnish a person's and as they say, poke hole in a person's honor and destroy a person's reputation. It's haram, right? Only in specific cases are you allowed to mention or do that type of thing. Like what? When is it allowed to do that? That you might have to, as we said, you might have to go in on a person's reputation. Marriage, right? A sister's looking to marry a brother, you know the brother got a problem with drugs. At that point, you gotta say something so they don't put the sister in harm's way. She looking to marry a brother, he got a problem hitting women. He beats women. You gotta say something. You can't say, no, we gotta protect the brother. You gotta protect his honor, shit. No, so you protect his honor and let her get beat in the house? That, right? Or he got a reputation for doing whatever. Whatever that thing is that he got, in that case, you don't put another Muslim in harm's way and hide what the reality of a person is, right? But that's when she's seeking to marry. Or vice versa, you tell a man about a woman if that's the case, right? But outside of that, and that's a specific situation. Just in general, a person's reputation is sacred. Their honor. You can't just walk around talking about people slamming. That's not allowed. And if it's done, it's sinful. And that's why it says, regarding taking a life, murder, these things are not lawful when they are taken, except the only time a life can be taken, the only time somebody's money can be taken, the only time a person's reputation can be tarnished, and you can talk about them, is when it's done with right. It's taken by right, meaning the basic rule regarding to protect the citizen, Muslim or not, even if they're not Muslim, right? Is that their life and their honor is sacred. You can't just walk around and say, well, they're not Muslim, it's free game or free, they're open. That's not, Islam don't allow that, right? We can take their money because they're not, Islam doesn't allow that. That's not the origin. That's chaos, right? He says it's not permissible to take any of these things in any circumstances until we verify the lawfulness to do so. What will make it lawful? How will we know if it's lawful to take a person's life? What will make it lawful? Now, how do we know? How do we verify that that's a reason to do that? The text. It says we cannot verify the lawfulness of such matter except by the Quran or the Sunnah. The Quran and the Sunnah has to say, if this happens, then this life, the life is to be taken. If this happened, then you take their money. If this happened, then you speak about the person's reputation. Outside of that, we don't have the right to do that. But and of course, if it comes to taking a life, then that's to be done, as he said, it is not permitted by the government. It's not just for random people. Random Muslims just killing people and thinking that, no, they violated Islam. No. That's for the established government. Because the reality is this. If a life has to be taken, if you live under the Muslim rule and the life has to be taken, who's going to take it? It's going to be a governmental procedure. They're going to go to court. They're going to stand in front of the judge. If the judge rules that, that means the government appoints somebody to carry out the death penalty. Somebody has to carry out the death penalty. Just like here, somebody here, right? If somebody gets the electric chair, somebody pushed the button. Well, however they started. If somebody gets a lethal injection, if somebody does something. There's some person behind it who actually does the thing. Does that person who does it go to jail? No, because it's done legally. It's done with right. It's done under the scope of the government and the rules that are placed. It's the same thing as Islam. If that was the case, it would be a procedure. Later. He says, so it is not permitted for an Islamic government to take the life of a Muslim, except there's specific times when the government can do it. It's not even legal for the government to do it, except if the Quran or the Sunnah dictates that. He said, except the married person who commits adultery. This person could be put to death. That shows you how serious it is to be having sex with people when you're not married. And some of us think, we misunderstand. We think that adultery is what? What is adultery anyway?
You take it as if you're married.
If you're married.
Sex.
Right, if you're married and you have sex outside of your wife. You have sex, you're married, or the wife the same. person is married and they have sex with somebody else, and the other person is not their spouse, they're not married to the other person. Adultery. But Islamically, what is adultery? If you've ever been married before, and then after that you have sex with a person and you're not married, it's adultery, Islamic. We'll show you how serious it is, right? That a person can be put to death. Like, in that case, the government would have due right to carry out the death penalty, right? Or in the case of a life for a life, somebody kills somebody, right? It's confirmed because it ain't like, it's not like, I don't know what the perception is. It's not like people come in there and they scream something, kill them. No, it's a court system. There are procedures. That people have to go through due process. It has to be proven that this is what happened. It's not chaotic. Islam is not chaotic like that. If that was the case and it was proved that, then the government has the right to do that. And the one who exits the religion of Islam, murtad, apostasy, in this case, it has to be proven. Everything has to be proven, just like here. People go to court, they can say anything. People can accuse you right now of anything. You have to go to court and then they have to prove it with evidence. It's the same thing in the Islamic court. It has to be proven. Tayyib. He says also when it comes to they can't kill them or cut any limbs except for the Islamic government or except that it is proven. He says the same thing is applied on page 47 with the money, wealth, right? And the dhimmi. It says there the dhimmi, D-H-I-M-M-I. The wealth, the money of a person is sacred. Haram to just take people's money. Also the dhimmi. The dhimmi is the non-Muslim that lives under the Muslim government. If you go to Saudi, it's non-Muslims that live in Saudi. Happy. See them, they got their whole families with them. Kids and all, they live in a good old, mashallah, right? You can't see them and then, right, they're not Muslim, they live in here with the Muslims, let's take their car. You're going to jail. In the land of the Muslims, you're going to jail. We don't have the green light because they're not Muslims. They just take from them and harm them. Huh? The tax. Yes, you have some, if that's the case, the dhimmi, they pay the jizya for living here. And then you have some, as it says, whoever has a covenant of security. These are people who don't necessarily pay the tax, but they still live in the land of the Muslims, right? The non-Muslims, they live in the land of the Muslims. They don't allow because they're Muslim, because we're the majority. We're in the Muslim country, the majority, we see some non-Muslims. They don't allow us to just run up on them and take their stuff and harm them. Islam don't allow that. If that happens, you're going to jail. You're going to face the penalty for whatever the penalty is in the country for doing that, whatever the crime is. So the origin when it comes to people is that you can't take their money, you can't kill them, take their life, you can't destroy their reputation, right? Except when it's allowed Islamic, and that has to be proven, even if it's an Islamic reason. A person could come and say, right, Islamically, if a person commits fornication, there's a penalty for that. A person could come and say he committed fornication and accuse him of it. That means they just want to take him there, take him in the bank and kill him? They got to be proven just like anything else. So it don't mean just because a person says it that there is an Islamic rule that's just going to be applied to a person. That's chaotic. Later. He says none of these things is lawful, none of it is lawful except for a Sharia-based right. Except that Islam allows that, right? And the same applies to their honor. You're not allowed to talk about people. You're not allowed to disrespect people and talk about people and poke holes, as they say, in a person's character and in a person's reputation without due right. You need to do right Islamically, not because y'all got something personal going on. Y'all had something personal going on, but that don't mean you can say something bad about the person, right? There might not be no need. Now, y'all did a bad business deal, and you know somebody coming to you and ask you this, I'm going to business with you, brother, what you think? At that point, right, you're allowed to expose what the brother didn't know. So that he doesn't, what the sister didn't know, so that you don't put them in harm's way. Islamically, that's allowed, right? But a lot of us, we get personal. We start calling people names, and then you ask them, why you say that? They shut out. Why you say that? Shh, tell him. Come on, I'm trying to tell you. You ever been down there? Yeah, I was down there. You ain't see it? See what? You got, I wouldn't even go down there, shake. That stuff don't mean nothing, man. That's just talk. That's like regular Philly talk. Shake, trying to tell you. The brother told me time. He said, he ain't on it. I said, what you mean? I didn't even know he left. He ain't on what? He ain't right. Why not? I'm telling you about it. I'm telling you. I don't know what that Islamically. If we was in the street, like, that's street talk. You know what I'm saying? That's street talk. You my man, yo. I'll take that. This Deen, that doesn't hold weight Islamically. That doesn't hold, like that doesn't mean anything in our religion. For you to just come and say, I'm trying to tell you this shit, and do all the faces and the theatrics and all that, I'm supposed to believe you because you're making faces and you're looking at me, you're raising your eyebrows. Islamically, that doesn't mean anything. Not Islamic. Your brother got mad at me when I was saying that. That's my man. So it was pretty good for me to say. So I looked at him and said, come on now. That's not Islam. You haven't Islamically, you haven't presented anything for me to say anything about the brother. You just came in and told me to stay away from the man. I asked you why, you tell me, tell me. What part of the religion is that? Where in Islam do you get to do that? And that's the question we gotta ask. Where do we get this stuff from? Why do we allow it? Why do we allow people to come and talk about it? You can be praying with a brother or sister years. You only know good for them. Somebody walk up to you and just tell you, man, oh, that's something. Oh, man, I'll just stay away from nothing. I mean, like, what happened? You don't know? No, what? Ask such and such. You told me, now you want me to go ask somebody else. Ask him about it. Why do you bring it up? If you're not going to tell me, why would you bring it up? And what did that do to the person we talking about? That puts a big question mark over their head now. To a lot of people, not to everybody. Some people, I'm not taking that. But to some people, that puts a big question mark over their head. That's called destroying a person's reputation. You're attacking a person's honor with that. And Islamically, if you have the right to do that, you need to present it. Don't do all the theatrics and all them trying to be blowing the whips. You gonna say, no. You need to present something Islamically. What did they do Islamically that allows you to say that? And that's why it says here, all of these things, it says, and the same applies to their honor. The honor of the Muslim is sacred. It's haram for you to just talk about people. You need a specific case Islamically that would allow you to do that. Later, he says, he returns to the books of fit for more detail. Later, he says the last two is two different sections. When it comes to worship, ibadah, that he says the basic rule regarding acts of worship, also in ibadah, at-tahreem. The origin, when it comes to worship in the chapter of worship, is that it is haram for you to worship Allah in any type of way, except for the way that Allah and His Prophet told us how to worship. Everybody clear? It says, therefore, nothing is legislated in the religion. You can't do any type of worship except what Allah and His Messenger legislated. You can't just make up something and you call yourself getting closer to Allah. That's part of my worship. Right? That's called what? Because bid'ah. There we go. Now we're talking bid'ah. What do you like? I'm not saying y'all understand. It's a hot topic. Bid'ah. Later. Which means the only way you can worship is how we taught to worship in the Quran and Sunnah, the process. Therefore, a person can't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to start doing this as a part of my ibadah every day. That's not found in the Quran and Sunnah. Because a person going to say, well, where did you get that from? For example, a person going to say, well, where did you, is there an ayah or a hadith that shows we can do that? No, I just think this is just like, I think this is the type of worship. Though. You don't have the authority to do that. And that's what it means. All worship, the basic rule when it comes to ibadah, any type of worship, is prohibition. You can't do that. You cannot pray like that. The only way you can pray is how? How we taught to pray in the Quran and Sunnah. You can't fast like that and it count as worship. And you might want to just fast just to lose weight or something like that. You try to shed a couple pounds. You talking about worship? You can't fast like that for worship. The
only way you can fast for worship fast has to be how it's found in the Quran and the Sunnah. And that's why it says the basic rule for any act of worship is prohibition. You can't do that. The only way you can do that is how it is found in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. Therefore, when it comes to worship, we can't do anything we want to do. You don't do, Muslims are not allowed to just do what feels good. It's feel good for me. It's not allowed in Islam. Why? All you gotta do is go to the prohibition. Islamically, everything that we do from worship has to be sanctioned in the Quran or in some of the Prophet. Then we can do it like that, right? Not just this. I think this works for me. Not Islam, no. Right? Islam doesn't allow that. Like the last one is the adat, the basic rule regarding customary acts. Al-adat, al-asl fil adat, al-ibaha. Al-asl fil adat, al-ibaha. The origin when it comes to the basic rule for customary acts is one of lawfulness. I'll read that again, if somebody can translate it. The basic rule regarding customary acts is one of lawfulness, which means what? Again? Number one, what do they mean customary acts?
The way something is usually done.
Huh?
The way something is usually done.
The way something is usually done, okay. Culturally amongst the people, the norm amongst the people. The order, that's the same thing. The custom of the people, what people normally do. We got things that we do normally amongst us. It's our custom. They don't do it in South. They don't do it in East Africa. They don't do it in Asia. Those things are none of that. Right? We got our own custom. If you go to another country, they got their own custom. You go to another country, everybody got their customs. Are customs allowed in Islam? Yes. That's the origin. The basic rule regarding our custom is one that is lawful. Islamically, there's no problem. What's the custom that we have? A hat? Let's use something like, when it comes to food. Let's just say I invite all y'all to a barbecue, right?
You gotta have the coffee, right?
No, that might be controversial shit. Let's say I'm having a barbecue, I invite everybody to the barbecue, right? So when it comes to eating, what's the custom? Do y'all come to the barbecue, just grab a plate and just go on food? Huh?
Yeah.
It depends. On what?
On how it's set up.
On how it's set up, right? Depends on who invited me, right? If it's my man, we close. If it's family, what we do? We show up and start eating. If it's somebody that I'm close to, everybody, we all understand the same thing. Muslim, non-Muslim, we understand the same thing. If it's somebody I'm close to, you get there and it's a bunch of their family there. You might be like, oh. Then you start looking for people you know, right? So some things that's no problem. All right, let's just say we're going to a wedding, or we're going to a dinner, or we're going to a graduation. What's the custom? As far as preparing to go. A haircut, right? That's custom. Everybody with me? That's custom. Everybody's gonna, you know what I'm saying, do something to be presentable, as we say. That's just from the custom. But if somebody come, right, outside of what we're used to, then everybody's gonna be like, this is like you out of pocket. Right? Like that's out of place for this, based on our custom. Right? Whereas, for example, in Mecca, you go to a wedding, you might not have to get no haircut because their custom is when you go to a wedding, you gotta wear something on your head. Part of their custom is covering the head where people, you go to like an event, you cover the head. Our custom, you don't go to certain places, you don't go with a hat on. Right? Certain clothes you don't wear, that's our custom. Is that allowed Islamically? The origin of our custom, not just us, everybody has different custom. The origin of the custom is that it is lawful, it's okay. Therefore, nothing, it says nothing customary is prohibited. There's nothing from our custom that is haram, except what Allah and His Messenger made haram. Because we might have things from our custom, right? Yeah, we all know it is normal, but that don't mean Islamically it's allowed, right? Like some of the things we say, some of the thoughts that we have about people. At least here in Philly, we got thoughts, right? That Islamically, they don't fly. The origin, I don't know about now, but I know people my age. The origin is that everybody, I ain't gonna say that. I'm not saying that because you might still have problems with that, right? I'm being careful, shit. Inshallah, I'm being careful. The origin is that we have some things that even if it's normal to us, Islam doesn't allow it. Right now, in our area, tattoos are normal. It's normal. People go on interviews, tattoos, exposed all over like it's normal. Right? You go to get a job, no problems. It used to be, the people who walked around like that, that was like, they were looked at funny. They were considered a certain type of, it might not be all the way right. Now, it became normal. Because it's normal, that don't mean Islamically it's correct. Because tattoos Islamically are major sins. The Prophet said the one who gets a tattoo is cursed. Anyone who gives them a tattoo is cursed. So Islamically it's not allowed, even though culturally and custom amongst us, it might be normal. Clear? And there's other things, just to make the point. Because it's a custom, it doesn't mean everything that we have is from our culture and custom. It doesn't mean it's allowed. It means that the origin is that you can practice the custom of the people you're from. Except when that custom goes against what Allah and His Messenger legislated. That's the origin. We'll stop there. Next week we'll do the last rule, which is dealing with that itself, the custom of the people. The 12 maximum, that will probably be the last class for this book. That'll be the end of this book, inshallah. We'll stop there unless there's any questions. No questions? I don't know if it's persistent over there. If there's no questions, inshallah. We'll stop there until next week. Inshallah, sallallahu alaihi wa sallam.